Hello and welcome to the Self-Made Book Channel. I'm Bianca.
And I'm Byron.
And today we're giving you our business news digest.
Yes.
Byron?
Yes.
Do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So one of my topics today is the Joe Rogan Podcast has been bought by Spotify. So
I don't know who Joe Rogan is, babe.
I remember when I mentioned you, I don't know who Joe Rogan is. I was like, okay, that makes it interesting. So Joe Rogan essentially is a pundit for UFC. So he's a commentator, pundit for UFC. Last year he started a podcast called the Joe Rogan Experience, and he's had some great people on there. Interviews like with Mike Tyson, Elon Musk, Bernie Sanders. Like he's had a variety of different people, right? Is anyone the ones? Oh, that was it. Dan Bilzerian. I can never pronounce his surname, but he's anyway.
And I know you love Dan Bilzerian. Yeah, I can't remember what he does either. But
yeah, let's not talk about that now.
Oh, right.
Anyway. So he's a poker gambler. He's a gambler. Right?
Oh, right.
He's living his best life.
Oh, yeah, you like his lifestyle thing.
He's got a great lifestyle.
Yeah, sure.
So Joe Rogan has interviewed all these crazy these people. I say crazy people because I remember because Elon Musk was on his podcast, and that's when he was smoking the pot, which effectively.
So I remember that bit where everyone was like,
had a major impact
Elon
on
Musk
stocks.
is smoking.
Anyway, Spotify have bought the rights to his content. It's reported for it to be about £100 million. Wow. Big money, right?
How often is he recording?
So I don't know the frequency of his recording at the moment, but those three interviews that I pulled out. So Elon Musk, Dan, and Mike Tyson is 63 million views on YouTube.
Whew, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, just those alone, right?
So sole rights, everything will be on Spotify now.
So they'll get exclusive rights.
Okay.
Right. So before, I remember reading that he was essentially Spotify was saying, "Oh, why don't you put it on our platform?" And he was like, "Well, show me the money."
Yeah.
Because it's difficult to monetize on there.
Mm.
So now they bought the rights to it, and I just think, for a number of reasons, for content creators, it's great. So this was happening from September.
Mm-hmm.
September 1st. So from content creators, it's great. It just shows that if you get the right content into the right people, and he used his network because he was in and around some of these people, and now everyone wants to go on the Joe Rogan podcast, right? But Spotify, they've said, okay, we need these streams, we need these streams to our platform, so there's a check. And when I looked at kind of the stats behind how many streams he was expecting, it was in the billions. So big numbers.
Big numbers.
So I thought that was a really, really interesting deal by Spotify and story. And just so there's so much money out there, you've got to just redirect it, to you. So that was my first one.
Okay, super. So my story is about Transport for London.
Go on.
So it's a big story that came out last week. I think big. I don't know how big it was for everyone, but for me, when I heard this report, I was quite annoyed. I think initially. So I know, unlike me, I saw her face. She's like, Bianca, annoyed? How? Anyway, so TfL basically were down to its last 2 months of cash. They had 2 months left of cash in order to continue as a business, continue running Transport for London services. So Transport for London obviously is buses, tubes, trains, and what have you. Mm-hmm. They had a 4 billion loss in revenue due to lockdown, which obviously is significant. So 4 billion is not an easy for any business.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because they had something like a 90% reduction in travel.
I guess because I don't understand what their costs are, it's difficult for me to comprehend how. Because
if you think about how expensive it is to take the train, or people buy travel tickets and so on,
they must be making billions anyway.
Yeah, of course they are.
But I'm just trying to understand, because I'm just thinking, if there's a reduction in in users, fine. There's a reduction in income, but then they also have their own reductions in overheads.
Well, maybe not, because I guess, yes.
So I don't understand it enough to comment, perhaps.
Fine, because they could have had their staff and thought, well, okay, fine, whatever. Anyway, they basically had to get a 1.6 billion bailout from the government.
Yeah.
But the government did so, but in return, they wanted some clarity as to how they were going to repay this loan.
Mm-hmm.
So they encourage them to change certain things. And these are the things that I'm going to go through quickly now, right? The one thing that I would say, though, is they're really annoyed that the government refused to take on an additional 505 million debt from COVID, whereas they have taken on debt or helped other businesses. They refuse to help TfL in the same way. So I think it's interesting, and I wonder if this is like a party political problem. Because obviously Sadiq Khan is Labour, the government's Conservative, and I wonder if they're kind of using their political muscle here. But anyway, that aside, essentially the breakdown is congestion charge has gone up.
It's outrageous.
So it was outrageous anyway.
It went up, go on.
It was £11.50, it's now £15, so that's a 30% hike. But in addition to that, it's now 7 days a week, where it was 5 days a week. So it was weekdays, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now it's 7 days, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Now, I know I'm a driver, we're drivers, so it irritates me more, but I can't understand how that makes sense from an economic perspective. Beyond helping TfL, it will discourage people from driving into central London. Central London, who some of their stores and retail are already suffering from people not coming and making purchases. Like, why would you now want people not to drive? In addition, the ultra low emission zone is obviously £12.50. So if that's going up? No, that's still £12.50.
I was going to say that's crazy.
All the time. So if you have a 5-year-old diesel car, so not massively old car, 5-year-old diesel car, diesel cars that they told you to buy in the first place. You will now be paying £27.50 per day. So that's £550 a month if you had to drive in central London 5 days a week. Which obviously is a huge cost. And if you think about right now, people are already struggling economically to suddenly put this new tax, and it is a tax.
And there's no better alternative. It's not like the transport system is
that's the problem.
So wonderful during peak hours that I can now transition.
I can rely on that, and people can't rely on it. So you can't say to people, well, TfL, we
with
need
COVID
more money
floating in the air.
So that's the other thing, right? So the government, so Boris Johnson on one hand said, go back to work if you can. And if you can go back to work, try not to use public transport, try to drive instead. And then on the other hand, the other side of the government said drive, but please pay this extra tax.
Yeah, I think it's,
And so so I listened to the radio today, I heard the advert for TfL, they said, please wear face masks on public transport. And Sadiq Khan said it's the most unselfish thing you could do. So they're encouraging people to use masks, which conflicts with the other information the government gave where teachers don't need to use masks. It just doesn't make sense. Anyway, so they've told you to go back to work if you can, to drive if you can, but they've now given you this additional cost. In addition to these new TfL rules to make more money, is they've stopped free travel for school children. So under 18s, free travel will be axed. That's 1.5 million children that are now not going to be able to travel for free. Now, I know when we were kids, we paid. I paid 40p every time you got on the bus. Whatever.
Yeah, it was 40p in your day.
Yeah.
All right.
Was it cheaper in your day?
It was a little bit cheaper, but I was aware of additional costs.
You're older, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's that cost, which obviously is another impact financially. I understand TfL need the money, but actually they're saying kids need to go back to school in June. Can the parents afford to now pay for their transport as well as everything else that's happened? Another knock-on effect on normal people. Anyway. And then the final one is final two. So the free transport for the Freedom Pass and the over 60s will now only be off-peak times.
That's going to cause outrage.
So 1 million adults are going to be affected by that. And then the final thing they've said is the fees, Transport for London fees, will go up in January. And it will rise above inflation, all costs of travel. So there had been a 4-year freeze on travel, and it's now going to go up above inflation from January in order to recoup this money. And it's just like, I think Sadiq Khan is, I'm not a fan of him, to be frank, but I think he's on, he's in an interesting predicament because he obviously needs the money to keep the TfL business going. But, to now tax everyone else, it doesn't sit well.
He's in a challenging role.
Yeah, of course he is. And he said that, he's saying this has been tough on his mental health, and I feel sorry for him for that. But this is a challenging role, it always was. But can you imagine the billions they made in profit, or they must have been making money before?
Where does all that money go?
Where does all that money go? And I think he's sneakily, under the radar, just implemented his thing about making London one of the world's largest car-free zones. While we were all in lockdown, he's added extra cycle lanes, He's made certain areas walking only. So the streets in London Bridge, Shoreditch, Euston, Waterloo, Old Street, Holborn, they're limited to buses, pedestrians and cyclists only. Cars and lorries are banned, and may be banned, from Waterloo Bridge and London Bridge. Like the traffic isn't bad enough. So he has created these cycle lanes, which is increasing congestion and then charging drivers extra for congestion.
Thanks.
That's okay. Your next story.
And
you see I'm passionate about this.
That wasn't thanks to you. That was...
oh, thanks to him.
Thanks.
It's just... you can't... You just, anyway.
So my next one's an interesting one, right? Have you heard of a lady called Patricia Yates? She's the acting CEO of Visit Britain. You heard of Visit Britain? I didn't really... it made sense to me. I hadn't heard of it before either.
So tourism.
It's tourism, right. Essentially, right? So, the websites that you'd go to when you're travelling, you'd visit... It's
like a Visit London.
Visit Britain, Visit England, right? Sure. And essentially, it's funded by the government to the tune of £25 million between the two of them. But essentially, the story is they are considering government... Well, her proposal was to look at adding an additional bank holiday in October.
This year?
This year.
Oh.
So when the kids are off and so on and so forth, they're looking at adding an additional bank holiday. Now, I had to dig deep to try and validate this story.
Right.
Because it was on all the platforms, but they weren't really giving me... It was a bit of hearsay, but I dug a bit deep. I found some information. It has some legs in it.
Okay.
But what was really interesting, I'll pull some stats and facts, right? The UK tourism is worth 127 billion, right? It employs over 3 million people and supports 200,000 SMEs. So the business side of it is really, really interesting, right? And I'm not sure. So with additional bank holiday, there is winners and losers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the economics behind it, there will be some that gain and some that lose as a result. Whilst the people as a whole might be happier, some businesses will lose, tourism may gain, etc. So I would really like to know, and we're going to reach out to their team and see if they'll jump on an interview with us. But we're really interested to know how that will impact the economy and SMEs, the smaller businesses who have to pay for these days off and so on and so forth. So I thought it was a really interesting plan, but I like the fact that she's the acting CEO.
Okay.
Right? So the question
is... Some good legacy right there.
So yeah, is it a two-part thing? Is there a legacy behind that? Number one. Number two, can you... is there some legacy behind it? But then can you be a bit more outrageous? Anyway...
Cool.
We will soon see. Your next one.
My final one is just a bit of a fun one. So McDonald's are reopening some of its stores, and Brian's looking at me so strangely. I'm only using this one because I think it's so interesting, just based on, everyone knows Layla, I'm sure, across Instagram, who was very upset when her mum said that all the fast food chains
were closed. The young kid.
The young kid who's now on all the adverts, who was very upset that she'd have to have her mum's cooking. Well, she'll be pleased to hear, although I'm hoping she now likes her mum's cooking and maybe will stay away from these fast food chains. But she'll be pleased to hear, as will many, that McDonald's is reopening 33 stores in the UK today, 6 in Ireland, and they're the drive-through stores first as a test. It will be a reduced menu, there'll be no breakfast, so that the staff can social distance. So they're saying, although it's a fast food chain, beware that it's probably going to be slow because of the social distancing and them adjusting. But what I thought was really interesting is...
Fast food that's going to be slow, that's a good one.
Thank you. What's interesting is they have a policy of a maximum of £25 spent per car.
So you can't go and...
Yeah, you can't just go and order because you've been missing McDonald's that much. And I mean, maybe
Do
people
you know
have.
What? I'll be really curious to know who spends more than £25? The average customer?
I mean, I think you'll be surprised that McDonald's meal is probably like £6 if there's 4 people in your family.
I'm not a consumer then, I don't
I think it could be quite easily done.
Yeah,
anyway, so in Spain there was a roadblock, and that's why I thought it was a really interesting story. There was actually a roadblock along the motorway, people queuing.
Yeah.
And so when I saw the pictures this morning of McDonald's preparing, they literally had cones out to try and do like a circular car parking service where they could go. It's actually crazy. So other updates, KFC, end of this week. Burger King has opened 72 stores as of Monday for drive-through and delivery. Again, ridiculous queues round the block. Nando's have reopened 6 stores, Wagamama's end of June.
This is UK?
And so on, yeah.
Cool.
But I didn't think it was that big of a deal until I saw the pictures and the social proof of people queuing outrageously around the block for fast food. So that shows people are probably just sick of cooking by now, which I can understand. Final one, but I just want to mention it and get people's thoughts on it so that we can talk about it next week, is Cambridge University have decided to do virtual learning only until summer of 2021. So that's a whole academic year. So anyone who's going to university at the moment and has been experiencing virtual learning, or anyone that plans to go in September, how are you feeling about that? And I just really want to know how you feel down below, so we can get an idea of what this virtual learning is really like at university. I think people at uni have been maybe a bit hard done by. They're still paying the fees, but are not getting a similar service. And if Cambridge don't think they can open for a whole academic year, how comes our schools are opening back in June?
Bianca, politician.
I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Let us know what your thoughts are and opinions are on all the topics that we covered. And tune in to our weekly news digest every Wednesday. We're trying to get these out to you before kind of 6, so between 2 and 6 is where we're trying to get them out to you guys with uploading speeds and everything else. So make sure you tune in. Our regular interviews on a Friday will be on a Monday will be continuing to take place, and on a Friday it will be the chats with myself and Bianca. So thank you for joining us today. Make sure you subscribe. My name is Byron.
And I'm Bianca.
And Self-Made
is success.
Take care now.
Bye.